the voice of the Green Bay Packers, Wayne Larrivee, our brother in Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin.
Some great commercials with Wayne.
Joins us on Wilde and Tausch. Wayne, how you doing?
Good, guys. How you doing?
We're doing fantastic. Wayne, how much great feedback do you get on those Pella commercials? Because I know Jason and I got a ton, and I know you down in the Milwaukee area. Do you get the same great feedback that we do?
You know, it's amazing, Tausch, the acting that goes into those. As you well know, you, Jason, and I are thespians by nature, and I'm just amazed that we haven't gotten more recognition from a critical standpoint for the acting aspect that goes into those commercials.
I was thinking the same thing. I know we're very popular amongst the people, but in the the stuffy, critical stuff, we haven't seen those.
You want a Wisconsin Broadcasters Award next year?
I think part of it is, Wayne, the fact that Jason took so long and we had to wait there, I think that maybe set us back a page. That might be why we're not getting the critical acclaim that we deserve.
But Tausch, when they ask us to walk and talk at the same time, now that's acting. You know what I mean?
I do.
We should be covered by AFTRA.
It's tough to argue with that. All right, Wayne, we always love your insights. You're up there all the time, and as the voice of the Packers. What did you make of, I guess, this offseason so far and how Brian Gutekunst approached it? Because from my perspective, I think everybody that you talk to and that we talk to on a daily basis, it was pass rush, it was wide receivers, and then what was going to happen with Jair. And I thought it was really interesting that Goody really addressed the offensive line, obviously with Banks, and then moving Elton, and then opening up those jobs for competition. And maybe we underestimated that part of it. What did you see this offseason?
Tausch, I think you're right on target with that. That's the way I felt about it when I saw the way the draft played out, when I saw one of the major acquisitions in free agency was the offensive guard, Aaron Banks from San Francisco. And it told me, as I saw this unfolding in March and April, it said, hey, they didn't think they had enough on that offensive line. Now, obviously, when they had the injuries in the Philadelphia playoff game, the kids they brought in just didn't make it that day. They're still in camp, and they still have a chance to be good players someday, but they weren't quite ready in that regard. So they understood, okay, the depth wasn't where it needed to be, and frankly, we need to get a little bigger and physical on this offensive line. And that's the transition you're seeing now. It's not just about Josh Jacobs. It's about the offensive line. It's about cornerbacks who may not be the greatest pure cover corners, but cornerbacks who are tough. And if there's a running back barreling downhill around the line, that cornerback's going to come up, and he's not going to find a place to hide. He's going to find a spot to hit that running back and take him down. So that's the kind of toughness you're seeing put into this Green Bay team. It's reminiscent of what Shanahan has been doing in San Francisco for the last 5 years.
Talking with Wayne Larrivee, the voice of the Packers, here on Wilde and Tausch, Jesse and Tausch today. Wayne, I haven't talked with you since the NFL draft took place in Green Bay. Did you get a chance to get up to Green Bay to experience it? And what did you think of what the Packers decided to do with two of their first three picks being wide receivers this year?
Yeah, again, there's another situation where you say, okay, you'll understand the first-round pick, but they also doubled down on that in the third round with Savion Williams. So it's interesting because I think that what Brian Gutekunst was saying, my impression is that draft unfolded, and yes, I was in Green Bay, and it was a great experience for everybody involved. But the thing that it said to me was Brian Gutekunst said, hey, listen, we've got a bunch of receivers, couple of whom are going to be free agents after this year and a couple more after the next year. So they had to replenish in it. And again, the draft is always a cross between the present and the future. We in the media, we as fans want to see immediate impact from a draft choice. And most of the time, that's not why the kid was picked. He's picked because they see upside down the road. And I think with these wide receivers, that's part of it. Now, we expect to see Williams on some gadget plays. And certainly we expect to see Golden make plays as a rookie. But really, I think those selections were because the Packers know where they're going to be a year and 2 years from now.
We've talked a lot on today's show about great debuts in Wisconsin sports history. What would it take for 𝙒𝙑𝙐𝙐𝙀 to have a fantastic debut season overall over these 17 games in the regular season to be considered among some of the best rookie seasons that you've seen calling the games for the team?
Well, I was thinking about this morning, Jesse, and there are exceptions. Okay, Justin Jefferson, when he walked on the field as a rookie, was a star. Jamar Chase, there are others that were just instant stars. But most of the time, it takes wide receivers a while. It takes them a year or two before they really blossom. 𝙒𝙑𝙐𝙀 going to get an opportunity early on. There's no doubt about that. He has talent and the ability and the speed that they're looking for. I think, a good season for him, I'd say 50 catches, averaging over 14 yards a catch, maybe 6 or 7 touchdowns. That'd be a hell of a year for a rookie receiver in this offense.
No doubt about that. I think we'd take that right now. Wayne, when you look at this defense, and the discussion on pass rush has been prevalent. I'm sure you've heard a lot about that. How much better do you think this group can be with really the acquisition of Hobbs and then the expectation that Edgerrin Cooper is going to make that huge jump? Where do you see this defense? Because I thought they made a great jump last year. Now, Jeff Hafley, they have another year. They understand each other better. Are you looking at another big jump, and where do you think that's going to come from?
It's going to be interesting, Tausch, because, when you look at the Packers defense, very solid against the run a year ago. Pretty good against the pass, except, and Hafley mentioned this after the season, he would have liked to have seen a little tighter defense late game situations. When the game's on the line and Minnesota was able to move the ball, game on the line in Detroit and the Lions, Jared Goff was able to move the ball against their defense. Those are things that you look at and you say, okay, that's maybe a step where they can make a little bit more improvement. Their top 3 cornerbacks, I think, are good. I agree with Brian Gutekunst on that. Beyond that, they've got an experience in that core. I thought losing TJ Slaton was big in terms of run defense. They've got a kid that you probably haven't heard much about from Georgia by the name of Nazir Stackhouse. And he's a big guy. They brought him in, I think, defensively to maybe play a role as early as this year against the run. We'll have to wait and see. But those are the areas I'd be a little bit concerned about. Your depth at cornerback if you have injuries and stopping the run, without TJ Slaton in there.
All right, Wayne, starting with Detroit and the fact that they have owned the division the last couple years, but they lost their coordinators. They lost their center. Where do you kind of look at the pecking order of this NFC North? Because I think it's time Green Bay recaptures that. Is that something that obviously they can do it? How do you see the NFC North after last season going 1-5 in that division? That obviously has to be the top of line when it comes to setting goals for this upcoming season for this team.
You know what's scary about last year in the division? If Carl Brooks gets a manicure the week before the Bears game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's how close it was. And this division, Bears are going to be a better football team this year. They've acquired enough talent to be that better team. I think Detroit's still the team to beat on paper, and we're talking about paper until we snap the ball in September. We're just talking about paper here, but the Lions have talent. They have blue chip players all over that defense and offense, and that's the team to beat in the division. I think Minnesota, the question mark's quarterback. Well, they've got a heck of a head coach who is an absolute quarterback whisperer. And to be honest with you, if I were a Viking fan, and I'm not, I don't think I'd be nearly as worried about the quarterback as people on the outside seem to be. Because I think that's a great system. He has the best skill position people around him in the division. And Minnesota, I still think, is going to be a force. I think Chicago, as I mentioned, is going to be better. And the Packers, everything, in my opinion, is contingent upon they've been the youngest team in the league the last 2 years, okay? So now is the time for the second, third, and even fourth-year players to become players. 3 3 or 4 of them have to become blue chip players if the Packers are going to get to where they need to go.
Who do you think would be those players that you're expecting to become blue chippers?
Edgerrin Cooper is one right away that I would think is a blue chip kind of player. I think Zach Tom is, and the reason Zach Tom doesn't get more credit around the league is because Penei Sewell is at right tackle in Detroit in the NFC, and there's nobody in that class. But Zach is very, very good. I think you need a wide receiver to bust out in this offense. Could it be Matthew Golden? Maybe. I don't know. It could be Jaden Reed. It's not often, though, that a slot receiver is one of those kinds of guys. But those are some of the guys on this team that I think have a chance. A lot of people keep telling me Evan Williams, because of his smart, instinctive ability and play, has a chance to become a blue chip player. You know that Xavier McKinney already is one. On that defensive line, I would like to think Kenny Clark, if he could return to form, might be that kind of a guy.
Yeah, Rashawn Gary, there's a bunch of them. Where would you put Jordan Love? You've seen it up close. Obviously, the second half of his first year as a starter was dynamite. One of, if not the best player at that position in that part of it. And then last year, dealing with the injuries, and there's a lot of things that maybe didn't go right, but he was still good. What does he need to do? Because they added offensive linemen, they added wide receivers. How big of a year is this for Jordan Love?
I think it's everything, Tausch. I don't know who it was. Maybe it was Bill Walsh said, you don't know about quarterbacks, okay? You don't know about quarterbacks until they've started for 3 years. Not 1, not 2 years, 3 years. Now, all of us went off on Jordan Love after the Dallas playoff game. Everybody's going off on Jaden Daniels. But Love is just entering his 3rd year. This is really where you find out what you've got. And I got to tell you, through the adversity of last year, I probably saw more in Jordan Love last year than I did with the finish of the year before. Now, did he ever play? Even before the injury, was he on the level he was the year before at the end of the season in the playoffs against Dallas? No. But he persevered through some tough injuries. I thought by the end of the season, he was certainly not the red-hot quarterback we saw at the end of the previous season, but he was still very good. And I think that what they decided was, hey, listen, put a few more pieces in place, a little better protection of the offensive line, although it was good last year, but get that up to snuff. We're running the football. We're a power running team now, but they're not loading too much on the quarterback. But the other thing is the mechanics. And I got to tell you guys, watching him in this mini camp, seeing him earlier in the OTAs, he's playing, he's performing. He looks better to me now than he did last year at this time. I think his accuracy is much improved. He's very smooth, very confident. He's taken a leadership role on. I think he's going to have a big year. But this is the year where you find out what you have with this quarterback.
Talking with Wayne Larrivee, the voice of the Packers. Excited to hear all that analysis from Wayne. One last question for you before you go, Wayne, here this afternoon. October 26th is going to be pretty fun. Packers, Steelers, the Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love matchup. How much fun is that going to be?
Well, on the surface, it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope everybody's healthy and plays.
Yeah. That's what I thought, too.
Listen, we're talking about a game. How many months away is that game?
I would have put Wayne. I don't know about you.
What shape they'll be in?
I would have put that game, I think, mid-September, making sure. But there is going to be a lot of juice from everybody involved for that game. Watching Rodgers go against Jordan Love.
It's going to be reminiscent of, remember when Favre came back to Lambeau Field with the Vikings, or even that first Vikings game when Favre, that Monday night game against the Vikings in the Metrodome. It's going to be that kind of an intensity, I think.
Yeah, we can't wait for that. Can't wait for football season. Wayne Larrivee, the voice of the Packers, thanks so much for carving out a little time in your day to join us today. Wayne, we really appreciate it.
Great being with you guys.